It's so tough when people are depressed, when people are experiencing depression. But people of faith often have misconceptions, misunderstandings about how faith and depression relate that actually make it worse. I've supported lots of people who've wrestled with various mental health challenges, and that's messed them up. But I've seen them even more messed up by some of their misunderstandings of what God is might thinking, or things that have been said to them. And I'm not going to promise to cure your depression in this video, but getting clarity on these 5 truths will make it a little bit easier. So let's dive in. Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Derek, and for the last 3 decades I've been helping people explore faith and growing in faith. And in these videos I'm sharing tools and techniques to help you live a deeper and a more meaningful life. So 5 truths, 5 faith truths every depressed person needs to hear. Number 1 is this, that it's not your fault. So you don't need to feel guilty about it. If you have depression, then it doesn't mean you're not trusting God. It doesn't mean you failed as a Christian. It doesn't mean that it's a sin. None of those things are true. And we know that when we read in the Bible that Genesis 2, near the beginning of the Bible, explains how the world got messed up. It explains how brokenness came, how sin came, and it infected everything. It infected our desires, which is sometimes we don't follow God and we go our own way. It's affected our bodies, which is why we physically die or we get broken things or illness. But it's also affected our minds and the chemicals in our brains and how they respond. It's affected our emotions. Everything is kind of screwed up a little bit because of what we call the fall, the brokenness that's come in. And that means that depression is not a sin so much as it's an illness. It's a part of the consequence of the world we live in. And we can see from the way the Bible responds to depression that it doesn't blame you or think that it's your fault. I mean, you can take the Psalms, which is like God teaching us how to pray. The Psalms are basically God saying, when you don't know how to pray, these are the words to say. And the Psalm tackles depression and when people are feeling down as a way of just expressing it. That's what the Psalm seems to say. I mean, Psalm 88 particularly, go and read that one. And it ends by, not on a note of hope, it says that darkness is my closest friend. Things are so bad that darkness are my closest friend. And what God says is when you're feeling down, depressed, pray those things, pray those emotions. Just don't pretend that something is what it isn't. Just express it and it welcomes and accepts it. Or you take like Elijah in 1 Kings 19. Elijah is a great man of God, so close to God. But in 1 Kings 19, he gets depressed and he feels suicidal. And God doesn't tell him it's a sin or it's his fault or that he should wake up or that he should trust God and fix it. Actually, what God does is he takes him on this beautiful journey of feeding him and letting him sleep and coming close to him and doing all sorts of things. Go and read that, and that gives you a sense of how God views it and what God thinks about it. Okay, the second truth is this, that God's still there even if you can't feel him. That the depression plays tricks on our thoughts and our emotions. And a lot of Christians, a lot of people on their faith journey relate to God through emotions. You feel high perhaps if you go to church and you're involved with worship, or we feel close to him if we're on retreat or if we're praying or we encounter him. So much of our experience of God is through our emotions. And if you're going through a season of depression, then you probably won't be able to experience God that way. You probably won't relate to him in that way. And so that can make us think, well, he's not there then, or he's not real. But that's not true. There's a Radiohead song called There, and there's this line in it. It says, just because you feel it doesn't mean it's there. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's there. But also the opposite works, isn't it? Just because you feel it doesn't mean that he's not there. And I don't know if you've ever flown abroad or flown in an airplane and you have this experience of taking off and you see the land and you see the land getting smaller and smaller. And eventually you'll go above the clouds, and for the travel of your journey you won't see the land. You won't see what's below. All you see is the clouds, but it's still there. And you keep traveling long enough and you'll come below the clouds and you'll see it, but you don't experience it. You've got to kind of trust it. And that's not like a pressure thing. It's just acknowledging that actually God can be there even if we don't feel him. And often we rely on our feelings, and that's just a different season when you're walking through depression, that you won't have that, but it doesn't mean he's not there. And the third truth is this, so many people need this when I'm speaking to them, that it's okay to seek professional help. It's not a lack of faith. That you can seek help, which might be professional counselling or speaking to a doctor, getting medication. I mean, if somebody had a broken leg and they went to a hospital, you wouldn't say that's a lack of faith, would you? You'd be like, well, that's the sensible thing to do. God has created the doctors, he's created medicine, he's created wisdom and insight, and that's part of God's provision. And if you end up taking medication for depression, or if you see a counsellor or a therapist or whatever, then that's actually God's provision. Prayer is rarely enough. Now, hear me correctly, prayer is rarely enough because of the way God's created the world. He puts prayer alongside other things. If somebody was struggling financially, for example, and they're in a mountain of debt, you would pray about it, but you wouldn't just pray about it. You'd be like, well, you need to see a debt counsellor, you need to see your bank manager, you need to fix some of those things. You would look for professionals because that's their specialism. You don't just rely on prayer. You would add prayer to it. But trusting God is not just about praying for healing, but actually accessing the healing that is available. So I'm not an expert in those matters, but take professional help is absolutely fine and could be part of the way that God's going to rescue you, part of the way that he's going to heal you. And please could ask for a favour. Could you subscribe to the channel right now and click the like button? That would really help other people get to know with what we're offering here. Anyway, let's move quickly on to number 4 of the truth. And this truth is a tricky one. So this truth is that you're not going to make it on your own, that you need other people and you need to trust other people. And part of God's gift to you is the people around you, perhaps the people in your church. And I understand that when you're feeling depressed, you might not want to be around lots of people and go into busy things. That's why church can be difficult for people. But try not to isolate yourself and try to connect to a few people who you trust. Maybe you meet them for coffee, or maybe you can gather in smaller contexts to interact with people. And you need to have wisdom here, because not everybody around you will be helpful. Not everybody will be wise. The people around you are broken. They'll have messed up understandings, depression. They may say things that are trying to be helpful, but actually is really not useful to you at all. So that requires a bit of bravery to be honest and share with others. But really don't imagine that they will judge you. I mean, when someone comes to me and they're really struggling, they share that with me honestly. I don't look down on them. I think, wow, that's a real gift. If you were to trust me with your intimate struggles, that's a real gift to me, and it inspires me and it helps me feel connected to you. And then the 5th one, and this is a really powerful one, is that to widen our understanding of the cross. So for those who are followers of Jesus and maybe come across the cross before, the idea of the cross often presented that on the cross Jesus took all the wrong things that we did. He took the sins so we could be connected to God. But it's a bit bigger than that, of what Jesus did. That it was all the suffering and all the shame, all the brokenness of the world got put on Jesus, not just the wrong things, but everything that's wrong in this world. And that includes your depression was put on him. And on the cross, Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? That on the cross, because of all the sin, all the brokenness of the world got put on him. He felt this abandonment of God, this kind of disconnection from God, because he was so weighed down by the troubles of the world. And it's that sense of actually your depression is included in that experience, that Jesus died for that as well, to repair that and to heal that. And that means that Jesus knows what it's like, that Jesus had an experience of being abandoned by God, of not feeling God's presence. And that means that God can connect with you, because he's not a distant God. He's not like a God who's not experienced and doesn't know what it's like. That idea can really help us draw close to him. And it means that one day all things will get healed and repaired. And you may experience healing in this life, but I know people who've struggled for years and not quite shaking it off. And what the cross means is we know one day there's this hope of a new heaven and a new earth, that one day all things will be healed and all things will be restored, and we can look forward to that as well. And if you want to kind of know more about that, you need to check out this video, because this video just talks about suffering and where is God in our suffering. And if that's a question you're wrestling with, you're going to find that really powerful and helpful. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you next time.